everyone. My name is Pascal. I'm the co-founder of Nectara, and this is the wonderful Lailla Sena from Australia. And today we're having a conversation, a casual conversation around embodiment. And Laila's going to educate us on embodiment today. But first, Lailla, do you want to tell people where are you from and what do you do in life?
Thank you, Pascal. I'm originally from Brazil, and I've been living in Australia for the past 11 years or so. And what I do in life is sharing embodiment tools that support people to connect a little bit more with themselves. So I'm a yoga teacher, a breathwork facilitator, and I call myself an embodiment guide because I like to guide people into embodiment practices.
And what exactly is embodiment? I heard about embodiment for the first time around 2 years ago, and I thought it sounded like a really lofty goal to like embody this being into this life fully. And since then, I've been on a quest to discover what embodiment means for me, but what does it mean for you?
What you said is actually really great. Like, other than what does embodiment mean, what does it mean to me, right? Because if we look in the dictionary, embodiment is something like, I can't remember the exact words, but it would be to have a concept actually materialized into something. So someone can say, I am the embodiment of peace, if they are always in this peaceful stage. But for me personally, embodiment means coming back home, deeply connecting with our bodies. So we feel in peace with ourselves, but we also feel that in connection with everything that we are feeling without the need to push it away or to ignore or to pretend it doesn't exist.
So it's a bit about embracing what is as well. It's a bit of like mindfulness and Buddhism tied into embodiment.
I believe there would be some of that. And the more that I get into the embodiment tools, I also discover that is that embracement and using tools to know how to navigate those spaces in which we are. Because, okay, we can embrace the chaos, but if we don't have a kind of relaxed approach to it, if we're like, oh, I'm in chaos, but then, then we get really involved with that, it's going to make it a little bit harder to be in the chaos. But if we can embrace it with that softer, loving approach, everything is okay. I am in chaos, and that's totally okay. Then it makes it easier, in my point of view.
Yeah.
Maybe for some people, being in the chaos isn't really there. It's what they need as well.
Right. And you mentioned like the physical aspect of embodiment. What does embodiment feel to you? And you mentioned that it's different for everyone else, or it could be different for everyone else, but what does it feel for you? And how, before you embarked on this embodiment journey, how embodied were you? And like, what were the signals that you were not being embodied at the time?
Oh, I love this question. Let's talk about my past life.
Yeah.
Actually, I was moving through a stage when around my early 20s where I felt that I was disconnected with myself. I felt that I was holding so many masks that I did not even know who was behind those masks. I would be one person with my mom, and I would be another person with my partner, and another person with my friend, and another person at work. So there was this disconnection between who I truly was to the thing that I was showing everybody else. And I think there was a lot of emotions there that I thought they were wrong and they couldn't be expressed. So therefore I created a lot of shame within myself that, I'm not going to show this part of me because it's really wrong. So that to me is being disembodied. So I was living in this beautiful chaos of my life, and a friend of mine invited me to a breathwork session, and I didn't know it was a breathwork session. So I went with her, and in the first probably 20 minutes that we're breathing, I started to get all this clarity about my life, to all the ways that I was not honoring myself, and to all the ways that I was hiding these parts of me and making myself wrong. A lot of things happened on that session, but it was the beginning of my journey towards becoming a little bit more embodied in knowing that it was okay to express all these parts and to find a space where they could actually be expressed. If there was anger, I didn't need to go and scream at everybody. I could practice at home, releasing that anger through my body, feeling it in my body and accepting within myself.
It's beautiful.
So I don't know if I actually answered your question.
You did, and it shows the journey you've been on with embodiment in terms of understanding that there was something misaligned with the way you were living your life. And looking back now, like, I don't know how many years ago that was, but what has living a more embodied life mean to you today? Like, it's always a work in progress, of course, but looking back now in contrast to today, what has changed?
Wow, so much has changed. I feel so much more in peace and in acceptance of myself. And instead of getting lost into the emotions that come, so if I'm feeling anger or sadness, instead of judging that as wrong and going into this crazy mind trip about it, and really punishing myself in different ways that I could do, then I just have the opportunity to use some of the embodiment practices that I do. For example, yoga or breathwork or movement, which is one of my favorite ones, free movement, to kind of sit with that emotion or move with that emotion, I should say, dance with that emotion and see what that emotion has for me. Why is it here? What does it want to say to me? So it's this beautiful communication now, other than, just that judgment of this is wrong, this shouldn't be done, this shouldn't be felt. But of course, as you said, it's always a work in practice. It's not that always I'm like, oh, I'm angry. Let me give myself a moment here. Let me go to the room and just, move it. Sometimes I just get angry, and sometimes I hurt people with my anger, and that still happens. But I can say there's much, much less than what it used to.
Wonderful. And you mentioned movement a lot, and I know from your Instagram videos that you love dancing and you love moving. How does, what I heard just now is the idea of like moving emotions through the body, and that's a practice of embodiment for you. Like, can you explain more, like how that has helped you throughout your life in terms of moving emotions, like either their joy or anger, and how do you practice that on an everyday level? Like, whenever you feel something, you go to your room and you move around it, or how do you make space around your life, and how do you do it? Like, is there a technique that you use in particular? Do you put music on every time, or like, do you do it while you're cooking, or like would love to learn more about your practice there.
Thank you. And dance is all of the above. I do move when I'm cooking, and sometimes I am so lucky that my partner is very much involved in the same things that I am. So even sometimes he will help me and he will facilitate me. He will be like, okay, I see there's a lot of anger there. If there was a movement to the anger, what would it be? And then I start to go like, why? And emotion, I've heard this many times, is energy, emotion, right? Is that moving energy. So when we feel something and we push it down, we're like, no, there's no space for it. The instrument get bigger and stronger. And also it causes stagnation in our bodies. That energy doesn't just disappear somewhere. It gets locked up, and sometimes that gets locked up in the shoulders, or sometimes in the hips, sometimes in the gut. Some people have like digestive issues even. So when we feel emotions and we have the opportunity to actually move the body, we are giving that emotion an opportunity to be expressed. And if we don't repress, instead we express, we have the opportunity to transform and transmute whatever is there. So sometimes it will be in one go. I'm feeling really angry, and then, I move and I shake and I punch the pillow and I let my body maybe dance even. And after that, I'm like, oh, I just feel so much better now. I can see the situation now with more clarity without the filter of anger. Does that make
That
sense?
makes a lot of sense. And now I can see the opportunities for me to do that more often. Like it really is a common thing to store a lot of energy in our bodies, and you can feel it in like pressure points and tension. And a lot of the work I've done over the last few years is looking under the psycho-spiritual aspects of this. But I think there's a somatic aspect to this as well, in terms of like chronic pain, for example, where expressing emotions more vocally and even through art and things like that can be very healing for our bodies. And you're hosting an embodiment circle at Nectara this week. Can you tell us more about, are we going to scream in pillows, or what do you have in store for us?
So you can if you
Okay.
like. Better bring the pillows just in case you want to scream in pillows. So the circle will be an invitation to move, and there's a little bit of structured movement, but there is mostly just I will invite you to feel your emotions and to express them through your movement, and just to see what happens from that space. So the practice is actually super, super simple, but it can be so powerful because the body holds so much information. And often we don't give a space for the body to express itself. We just try to get the answer from the mind all the time. So the embodiment circle is an opportunity to feel and to listen to what our bodies have to say. Super simple, very
Oh yeah,
powerful.
yeah, exciting. How how does attunement play a role into your embodiment practices? Because what I found in my own path is um, coming back down from the mind and going back and more into body awareness is the practice of attuning to like what is going on in my body. Like, how did you develop that over the years, and how do you have a practice around, like, did you a body scan, for example, when you wake up or when you go to sleep? Like, are you constantly scanning your body during the day? Or you, I guess, like, over time you've become a bit more of a ninja around these things, and you're, increasing your skills to do it. But like, how does body attunement play a role in your practice?
So my practice, I love the body scans.
Hmm.
Sometimes I would do it myself, but something that I practice in my daily life is more just the awareness. So, for example, if I have a lot of tension in my shoulders, I'll be like, oh, what is my shoulder trying to tell me?
Hmm.
And then I'll just try to listen. So it's a simple question and an approach of like, can I hear what my body is trying to tell me now? And for example, I'll give you a very, very simple example. During my period time, when I am having my moon, my blood, I tend to slow down. So if I have a lot of pain, the question that I ask myself is, okay, have I been too fast and not giving myself the time to actually rest and restore, to actually honor this time of the month for
Hmm.
me? And so the question normally comes very fluidly. But of course, I feel that I've been practicing this quite for a long time. And for someone that is completely new in embodiment, something like what you suggested is amazing. Like the body scan, just,
Hmm.
you know, notice what's happening with the muscles of your face, your shoulders, and going all the way down. I think that is a really beautiful suggestion.
Hmm.
Is that I'm curious to know if there is anything else that you use for kind of embodiment tools yourself.
Well, that's a good question. My biggest tool for embodiment actually has been um, being in community with other people in a community. I've learned a lot from about embodiment from looking at other people and the way they move through life and the way they react to things and the way they talk to each other and the way they flow in their body while they're walking. Like, I've learned a lot from people in the psychedelic space, really, especially during ceremonies and watching. Remember sitting in my very first ceremony and watching some people who just felt like elves from Lord of the Rings because they were so embodied and graceful in their body. And I was like, I want to be like that one day because it just felt like there's no resistance to what is, and there's no, um, you can tell they've landed in their body and their spirit really, really well because they've done the work and they've increased their level of practice and skills and understanding of who they are. And you can feel that in them. And so I've learned a lot from that. But otherwise, yoga has been, a big part of my practice and brings me from my brain to my heart and my body more. And um, increasingly meditation has been a good practice for me to tune in more. And my men's work, I always joke that all my friends are therapists and body workers and practitioners of some sort. So I'm learning, I'm learning from their shares, and I'm learning from their insights on body awareness. And one of my friends, Tyson, who's also a yoga teacher on Nectara, has been teaching me a lot around um, body attunement and the Feldenkrais method, which he's a student of. And the Feldenkrais method is kind of like all about the art of learning in a way, because it's all about recentering on the present moment and awareness and attunement. And it's been a deep part of my path to like um, look at these things, because my body from a very, very long time has been completely disembodied because my head was running the show the whole time. So for me, it's been like a huge part of my medicine is learning these things. So I'm excited that I'm learning a few things here today with you as well.
Thank you for sharing. I love what you shared as well. And I feel that we have so much to learn from each other. I love that it says that you learn a lot from the community about embodiment. And yeah, me too. I'm still learning so much, and I hope I'm learning until I die.
Well, yeah, me too. That's the beauty of the journey, is like it's never finished, never finished. Um, is there any other practices that you have in your life? Like I know you do yoga, and breathwork is amazing for embodiment, because uh, out of every practice I've experienced, the modality I've experienced, I think breathwork has been the most embodying of them all, because it just removes all the noise and brings you back deep into your body and your breath, and saying yes to life, like very powerful practice for embodiment. Is there any others, like dance, screaming in pillows, movement of any kind? What else do you do?
There's, I think, two more that we haven't mentioned yet, which is silence.
Oh yeah.
So the practice of silence, and I love really giving space to silence.
Mhm.
Although I am a very energetic person, so I'm always like, yeah, here and there. So giving space for silence, for me, it's so important to ground myself. And the other one that I practice a lot as well, it's nature connection. And that's another one that it brings me back to my body, because really there is no separation, nature and us. We are the same thing, which us humans tend to forget so much, so often. So when I'm in nature, I feel that nature is another expression of what's going on within myself.
Beautiful. I
So those two, I
can't
think.
believe we forgot the two most magical ones. Yeah, nature is
Well,
yeah, it dissipates the boundaries, I find, to be in nature, and it brings you into the witness mode, which I really love, is like just witnessing what is happening around you, rather than trying to like imprint something on it, or like trying to do or create something. There's nothing to do. It's just so beautiful and so magical, and you're in it. You're in the middle of it, and you can just be witnessing that, and that brings me out of my head and just brings me back into my body.
same, yeah. And it's interesting because in the beginning we said embodiment for me is coming home to myself, and nature is the extension of that. So whenever I'm in nature, I'm extending my home to a bigger space.
There's a local elder here called Jim Quigley. He's also a poet, and he wrote, "Nature is God's way of telling you it's your turn to create something as beautiful."
Oh,
And
my heart.
and I always think about that when I'm in nature, because I'm just like, as the witness, I remember that poem, and I'm like, wow, that's a deep invitation to something very special.
I love that. That is really beautiful. Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Um, I think because our conversation is also around um, integration and preparation for psychedelics as well,
Yes.
I want to share about how much these tools have contributed to me in both sides, the preparation and
Yeah.
integration. Although I feel that for me, there was a lot more preparation in that space, because for me, doing all these embodiment tools it was almost like I was cleansing my space first before I entered the ceremony. When I'm in the ceremony with a clear space, I can enjoy the journey so much deeper.
Yeah.
Than if, for example, I have been dealing with a lot of charge on anger, trauma, a lot of things that happen in this life that I haven't yet touched on. If I went to a ceremony without having cleared those true embodiment practices, which happens sometimes and that's okay, but I just feel that my ceremony would be so much challenging and difficult to be in, really. So it's from a space of deep gratitude to these practices that I can say that they really supported me to come to a point where when I enter the ceremony now, my experiences are much more related to joy and expansion and love and peace, other than releasing strong past traumas. And of course there is, but I feel that I can navigate them so much better now. So I just wanted to add that because I feel like it's super important if someone is thinking about doing plant medicine or any type of medicine, really, to just come to the spaces of embodiment first. Learn how to walk before you go and run. You know?
So yes, and I agree. And arriving in the container itself, like feeling as landed as possible in your body and present. Like just a few weeks ago, I went to a ceremony, and you can tell like the people who had been doing this for many years, they arrive and they were like, they landed in the space very quickly. And you can tell they were navigating the space really well and with flow and grace. And the people who are maybe more new to the space, you can tell there's like a lot of nervous energy in their body. And not surprisingly so, it was took a lot longer for them to actually arrive and fully receive the medicine. And it was more challenging for them as well. And so what would be ways for you to prepare your body with embodiment practices before a ceremony?
So the preparation that originally I was talking about would be more like preparation months in advance, maybe years in advance even.
Right.
But of course, there are things that we can do to prepare ourselves just before the ceremony. For me personally, like I love, if the ceremony is during the night, I'm going to go for a nature walk during the day. I'm going to do some meditation. Normally I fast because I feel that that's the right space for me, but different medicines require different things, of course. But eating really, really clean foods, because our body is our home. We don't want to put a lot of bad things in it, processed things. And yoga as well, such a beautiful, beautiful practice. I mean, all the practices that I do in my everyday life, I would try to bring just before the ceremony as well. And I would tune in and see which one my body is calling. If it's just free movement, just like, there's a lot of tension in my heart, so let me just freely move my body here and see if I can just release a little bit now. So when I come to the ceremonial space, I can just land a little deeper, a little more grounded.
Yeah.
So I kind of said all of them, but choose whatever it feels best with your body at that day, I would say.
And during the experience as well, I found like, I remember like the first ayahuasca ceremony I attended, my friend who has attended, honestly, probably too many ayahuasca ceremonies. I asked him like, what's your best tip to like really dive into the experience? And I remember him telling me like try to interface with the medicine in a very vertical way. So like aligning your body in a way that you can like kind of interface with it vertically rather than horizontally, like chasing things or like trying to look for things, but rather more like interface with it vertically. And so the breath opens up and the presence, deepens, and the grounding allows you to be more present for that verticalness. And I remember that being a very powerful technique for me to just land in the space during the ceremony in a more embodied way rather than having this, energy of seeking or energy of looking, on a horizontal plane. And that really helped me. And I'd love to have another conversation around practices and things that we can do during a ceremony. And also looking after the ceremony, how are ways that we can, deepen our embodiment so that we can anchor the insights a little bit deeper.
Yes, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I have so many things to share and to ask as well, and just learn from you, you know? Yeah, definitely. I would love to have that conversation.
Okay, thank you, Lailla, and we'll see you on in a few days at the Embodiment Circle.
Thank you so much for having me here,
Thank you.
Pascal, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you and everybody at the Embodiment Circle.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.